The Gifts of Imperfection, by Brene Brown, Ph.D., LMSW. Introduction. Imagine this. You're a researcher, a woman who has spent years studying the messiest parts of human emotion, things like shame, fear, and vulnerability. And you're invited to speak at a big, fancy women's networking lunch at a swanky country club. It's your first time speaking to a normal audience, not academics or therapists, and you're excited. You arrive early and meet the woman in charge. She sizes you up and says, "You don't look like a researcher." A bit odd, but you let it slide. You hand her your bio. She reads it for about 30 seconds, and then her eyes go wide. She looks up over her glasses and snaps, "This says you're a shame researcher. Is that true?" Suddenly, you feel like you're 10 years old in the principal's office. You whisper, "Yes, ma'am." She presses on, her lips pursed tight. "Do you study anything else?" You hesitate, then admit, "Yes. I also study fear and vulnerability." She lets out a sound that's halfway between a shriek and a gasp. "I was told you study how to be more joyful, how to have more connection. That's what people want to hear. People want how to." And then she lays down the law. Number 1, you're not going to talk about the things that get in the way. Just the how to part. Number 2, do not, under any circumstances, mention the word shame. People will be eating. And number 3, people want to be comfortable and joyful. Keep it joyful and comfortable. As she walks away, she turns back and adds one last instruction, waving her hands in a big, sweeping motion, light and breezy. People like light and breezy. For the next 40 minutes, that researcher stood in front of a room full of people, totally paralyzed, repeating different versions of, "Joy is good. Happy is good. We should all be joyful." It was, in her own words, a train wreck. That researcher's name is Drive. Brene Brown, and that disastrous experience held a secret that would unlock her life's work. She realized she couldn't talk about joy and connection without talking about the things that get in the way. She couldn't give a how-to list for happiness, because that's not how life works. Today, we're diving into her groundbreaking book, The Gifts of Imperfection. This isn't just a book, it's a map. It's a guide that has sold millions of copies and started a global conversation, because it answers a question that whispers in the back of all our minds. How do we find the courage to be our true, imperfect selves in a world that's constantly telling us we're not good enough? By the end of our time together, you'll understand the one belief that separates people who feel a deep sense of love and belonging from those who are always struggling for it. You'll learn the 3 most powerful tools you have for navigating life. And you will be invited to join what Brene calls a quiet revolution, a journey toward a life of worthiness. A wholehearted life. Book summary. So, where does a journey like this begin? For Brene Brown, it began with data. Piles and piles of it. After spending years studying shame, she had collected thousands of stories from people all over the country. And as she looked through all this information, she started to see a pattern. On one hand, there were the stories of struggle. The feeling of not being good enough, the fear of being seen for who we really are. But on the other hand, there were these incredible stories of men and women who were living what she could only describe as inspiring lives. They embraced their imperfections. They found joy in ordinary moments. They had this deep sense of connection to others. She didn't know what to call them at first, so she grabbed a file, took out a marker, and wrote the first word that came to mind: wholehearted. These were people who were living and loving with their whole hearts. She became obsessed. What did these people have in common? What did they value? How did they build such resilience? So, she did what any good researcher would do. She started sorting. She took out a giant piece of paper and drew 2 columns. In one column, she listed the ideas that seemed to define the lives of these wholehearted people. And in the other, she listed the things they avoided. The first column, the do column, was filled with beautiful words: worthiness, rest, play, trust, faith, intuition, hope, authenticity, love, belonging, joy, gratitude, creativity. The second column, the don't column, felt heavy. It was dripping with words like perfectionism, numbing, certainty, exhaustion, self-sufficiency, being cool, fitting in, judgment, scarcity. The first time she stepped back and looked at those two lists, she gasped. It was like a lightning bolt. Because when she looked at the do list, she saw a life she desperately wanted. And when she looked at the don't list, she saw her own life. She had built her entire life around perfection, proving her worth, and staying in control. She was, in her own words, living straight down the shit list. That moment sent her into what she lovingly calls her 2007 breakdown spiritual awakening. It was the moment her own research smacked her in the face and told her she wasn't living the life she was studying. She thought she knew everything about herself, but she realized something profound. Knowing yourself is important, but there's something even more critical to living a wholehearted life: loving yourself. And that is the core of this entire book. The journey to a wholehearted life is not about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming everything that isn't you, so you can finally embrace the person you were meant to be. It's about letting go of who you think you're supposed to be and embracing who you are. But how do you do that? It feels like a monumental task. The world we live in is a noisy place. It's constantly telling us to be richer, thinner, smarter, cooler, more productive. It pushes us into what Brene calls the hustle for worthiness. We perform, we perfect, we please, and we prove, hoping that if we do it all just right, we'll finally feel like we're enough. The wholehearted people she studied didn't hustle. They had found a different way. Their sense of worthiness wasn't on the other side of a promotion or a diet or a relationship. It was inherent. They believed they were worthy now. Not if. Not when. Right this minute. As is. This one belief is the foundation of everything. The belief that you are worthy of love and belonging right now. But a belief like that doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It has to be cultivated. It has to be practiced. And the research showed that wholehearted people practice 3 very specific things. Brene calls them the gifts of imperfection: courage, compassion, and connection. These aren't grand, heroic ideals. They are daily practices, tools for the journey. Let's start with courage. We often think of courage as something for heroes, firefighters rushing into a burning building, soldiers on a battlefield. But Brene discovered a different kind of courage. She went back to the root of the word. Courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means heart. The original definition of courage was to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Ordinary courage, she realized, is about putting our vulnerability on the line. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. It's the student who raises their hand and says, "I don't understand." It's the friend who calls and says, "I'm not okay. I need help." It's being honest about our excitement for something, even if it might not work out, instead of pretending we don't care to protect ourselves from disappointment. Ordinary courage is about telling our story with our whole heart. Next comes compassion. This one is tricky. The word compassion literally means to suffer with. Our first instinct when we see pain, in ourselves or in others, is often to protect ourselves. We might blame someone, or judge them, or rush in to try and fix it. But true compassion isn't about fixing. It's about connection. Brene writes that compassion is a relationship between equals. It's about being willing to sit in the darkness with someone, not as a healer trying to fix the wounded, but as a friend who can say, "I see you, and you're not alone." And this brings up a surprising discovery. The most compassionate people Brene interviewed were also the most boundaried. This seems like a contradiction, right? But think about it. It is incredibly difficult to be compassionate and accepting of others when we feel like they are taking advantage of us or hurting us. Setting boundaries and holding people accountable for their behavior isn't unkind. It's the key to being able to stay in our integrity and treat them with respect. It's saying, "I care about you, but this behavior is not okay." It separates the person from their actions. This allows us to be kind but firm, which is the heart of real compassion. And just as importantly, we have to have compassion for ourselves. Finally, there's connection. Brene defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. It's when you can give and receive without judgment. We are neurobiologically wired for connection. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity for our survival and well-being. From the moment we're born, we need it to thrive. But in our culture, there's a huge barrier to connection: the myth of self-sufficiency. We're taught that going it alone is a sign of strength. We divide the world into people who offer help and people who need help. But the truth is, we are all both. One of the most important lessons in the book is this: until we can receive with an open heart, we can never truly give with an open heart. When we attach judgment to needing help, we unknowingly attach judgment to giving it. Real connection is a two-way street. It flows in both directions. So, we have our tools: courage, compassion, and connection. But as that light and breezy story showed us, there are things that get in the way of us using them. The biggest obstacle, the one that fuels almost all of our fears of not being enough, is shame. This is the heart of Brene's research. She defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It's that warm, flushing feeling that washes over you, making you feel small and exposed. It's the voice in your head that whispers, "You're not good enough," or "Who do you think you are?" or "What will people think?" Here's the most important thing to understand about shame: we all have it. The only people who don't experience shame are those who lack the capacity for human empathy and connection. The less we talk about shame, the more control it has over our lives. Shame grows in secrecy, silence, and judgment. It's crucial to understand the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." Guilt is often a helpful emotion. It can motivate us to apologize, make amends, and change our behavior. Shame, on the other hand, is destructive. It corrodes the part of us that believes we can do better. So how do we fight back? We build what Brene calls shame resilience. She tells a powerful story about an experience she had. She was asked to speak at a big event with a list of incredibly prestigious speakers, world-famous scientists, political strategists, you name it. And her. She was terrified. She felt like a total imposter. She spent weeks paralyzed, unable to prepare her talk. Finally, in a tearful conversation with her husband, she admitted that this fear was tied to that horrible light and breezy country club disaster from years before. She had never told him about it. It was her secret shame story. The moment she spoke it out loud, something shifted. She owned the story. And in owning it, she realized what her work was truly about. She wasn't a how-to person. Her gift was talking about the things that get in the way. That's the first step of shame resilience: recognizing shame and speaking it. Shame cannot survive being spoken. When we wrap words around it and share it with someone who has earned the right to hear our story, someone who will respond with empathy, it begins to wither. With this understanding of our tools, courage, compassion, connection, and our main obstacle, shame, Brene lays out the 10 guideposts for wholehearted living. These aren't rules, they are practices. They are ways of being that we can cultivate every single day. The first and most important guidepost is cultivating authenticity, letting go of what people think. Authenticity isn't something you have or don't have. It's a choice. It's the choice to show up and be real. The choice to let our true selves be seen. It's a daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. This is the foundation. Without authenticity, none of the other guideposts can truly take root. The second guidepost is cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism. This is a big one. Brene makes a critical distinction. Perfectionism is not the same as striving to be your best. Healthy striving is self-focused. How can I improve? Perfectionism is other-focused. What will they think? Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we think will protect us from blame and judgment, but it's actually the thing that prevents us from being seen. The antidote to perfectionism is self-compassion, treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a friend who is struggling. The third is cultivating a resilient spirit, letting go of numbing and powerlessness. We live in a world that can feel overwhelming. And when we feel vulnerable, uncomfortable, or in pain, our instinct is often to numb those feelings. We use food, work, alcohol, the internet, the list is endless. The problem, Brene discovered, is that we cannot selectively numb emotion. When we numb the dark feelings, we also numb the light. We numb our pain, but we also numb our joy. A resilient spirit is one that has the courage to lean into discomfort, to feel the feelings, and to believe in our ability to affect change in our lives. Which leads right into the fourth guidepost, cultivating gratitude and joy, letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. For years, Brene thought that joyful people were grateful. But her research showed the opposite is true. People are joyful because they practice gratitude. Joy is not the same as happiness. Happiness is tied to circumstances. Joy is a spiritual practice, a deep sense of gladness that is independent of what's happening around us. It's found in ordinary moments. The biggest barrier to joy is scarcity, the never enough mindset. And we often sabotage our own joy because we're afraid. When we feel intense joy, especially about the people we love, we can get terrified of losing it. We think, it's too good to be true, and we start waiting for the other shoe to drop. The practice here is to consciously lean into that joy and practice gratitude, even when it feels vulnerable. The fifth guidepost is cultivating intuition and trusting faith, letting go of the need for certainty. We are wired to crave certainty. We want guarantees. But a wholehearted life is an uncertain one. Intuition isn't some magical power. It's our brain's ability to rapidly scan our experiences and knowledge to give us a gut feeling. We often silence our intuition because we're afraid of being wrong. Faith, similarly, is not about having all the answers. Brene defines faith as a place of mystery, where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. The sixth is cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. So many of us tell ourselves, I'm not the creative type. Brene says that's a myth. There are only people who use their creativity and people who don't. Unused creativity doesn't go away, it festers. It turns into things like judgment and resentment. Creativity is about making something that wasn't there before, whether that's a meal, a garden, a story, or a spreadsheet. The killer of creativity is comparison. Comparison is the crushing paradox of fit in, but stand out. It's about being just like everyone else, but better. When we create, we bring something uniquely our own into the world, and it cannot be compared. The seventh guidepost is cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. Our culture wears busyness like a badge of honor. We believe that if we're not exhausted, we're not working hard enough. But the research is clear: the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. Play is essential. It's doing something just for the sake of doing it, with no purpose or goal. Rest is equally vital. We are a dangerously tired society, and it's damaging our health and our relationships. Wholehearted living requires that we honor our need for both. The eighth is cultivating calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Anxiety is contagious, but so is calm. Calm is about bringing perspective and mindfulness to our lives instead of reacting to every emotion. Stillness is not about emptying your mind, it's about creating a clearing. It's about giving yourself an emotionally clutter-free space to feel, think, and dream. We often use busyness to outrun the truth of how we're really feeling. Stillness forces us to confront it. The ninth guidepost is cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt and supposed too. We all have unique gifts and talents. Meaningful work is about sharing those gifts with the world. It doesn't have to be the work that pays the bills. Many people have what are called careers. They are an accountant/jeweler, or a lawyer/chef. The biggest barriers are self-doubt: my gifts aren't good enough, and the supposed twos: I'm supposed to have a practical career. The theologian Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." And finally, the 10th guidepost, cultivating laughter, song, and dance, letting go of being cool and always in control. These three things are fundamental to the human experience. They create emotional and spiritual connection. They remind us that we are not alone. But they also require vulnerability. They require us to risk looking goofy, silly, or uncool. Hustling to be cool and in control is a straitjacket that keeps us from the pure, unadulterated joy of these expressions. Brene tells a beautiful story about being at a Nordstrom with her 8-year-old daughter, Ellen. Brene was feeling frumpy and self-conscious. Suddenly, a pop song came on in the store, and Ellen started doing the robot dance right there in the middle of the shoe department. Brene saw a group of perfectly put-together moms and their daughters staring and smirking. Ellen froze, looking to her mom for a cue. Brene's default, she admits, would have been to give Ellen a look that said, "Don't be so uncool." It would have been a way to save herself by betraying her daughter. But in that moment, she chose differently. She chose Ellen. She smiled and said, "You need to add the scarecrow to your moves." And together, they danced until the song was over. When we value being cool over being free, we betray ourselves. And when we betray ourselves, we often end up betraying the people we love. This journey through the 10 guideposts is not a checklist. It's not something you accomplish. It's a practice. It's a process of coming home to yourself. It's the work of a lifetime. It is the brave and messy work of wholehearted living. Commentary. When you step back and look at the Gifts of Imperfection, you realize it's more than just a book. It's a quiet and powerful rebellion. In a world that profits from our self-doubt, choosing to believe I am enough is a revolutionary act. For a young person today, perhaps more than at any other time in history, the pressure to be perfect is relentless. Every day, you are flooded with images of curated, filtered, and flawless lives. It creates an impossible standard, a constant feeling that your ordinary, beautifully messy life is somehow falling short. This book is the antidote to that pressure. It gives you permission. Permission to be human. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to feel what you feel, to struggle, and to know that your struggles don't diminish your worth. They are, in fact, the source of your strength. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the shift from an external focus to an internal one. The world teaches us to look outside ourselves for validation. We chase achievements, approval, and acceptance, believing that once we have enough of them, we will finally feel worthy. Brene's work flips that on its head. It tells us that worthiness is not something we earn from the world, it is our birthright. It's the starting point, not the finish line. When we can stand firmly in our own worthiness, we no longer need to hustle for it. We can show up in the world from a place of authenticity, not from a place of fear. So, how can you start putting these ideas into practice right now, today? It can feel overwhelming, so let's make it simple. First, get curious about your own don't list. You don't need a research project, just a little awareness. Over the next week, just notice the times you find yourself hustling. Are you being a perfectionist about a school project because you're afraid of what your teacher will think? Are you people-pleasing, saying yes to something you want to say no to because you're afraid of disappointing a friend? You don't have to change it yet. Just notice. Awareness is the first and most powerful step. Second, practice one small act of ordinary courage. This doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as telling a trusted friend, "I'm having a really tough day," instead of saying "I'm fine." It could be admitting "I don't know the answer in class." It could be sharing a piece of your art or your writing with one person. Courage is a muscle, and it grows stronger every time you use it, no matter how small the action. And third, start a simple gratitude practice. Before you go to sleep tonight, just think of one thing from your day that you're grateful for. It could be a conversation, a song you heard, a good meal. That's it. This simple act begins to rewire your brain. It trains you to scan for the good, to see the joy that already exists in your life, even on the hard days. It builds that reservoir of joy that can sustain you when things get tough. This work isn't easy. It requires you to be brave and vulnerable. As Brene says, you will confuse, piss off, and terrify people, including yourself. But the alternative is far more dangerous. The alternative is spending your life running from your story, hiding your true self, and giving up on the love, belonging, and joy that you are inherently worthy of. That was a summary of The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. We've covered the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you hold the book in your hands. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has made your heart beat a little faster, or made you feel seen, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.